Sequoia Field is a small, sleepy, and little-used general aviation airport. It's surrounded by farmland in the middle of California's beautiful Central Valley. It's one of those old airports of a bygone era that you could be driving by and not even know it's there. But it's these characteristics that make it almost perfect for powered paragliding, and accordingly, it's where I first soloed my paramotor.
Sequoia Field got its start in October of 1941 when it was commissioned to train pilots during World War II. Between 1941 and 1945, both Sequoia and nearby Rankin Field turned out over 18,000 pilots, primarily training in Fairchild PT-19s. Sequoia was called the Country Club by cadets, as the living quarters were above average. Quite honestly though, taking one look at the state of decline today at Sequoia will tell you that it was anything but a country club back then. The building's age are apparent, and the asphalt tarmac has been so cracked and weathered over the past 70 plus years that it's worn to dirt in some places and the weeds are pretty much everywhere. But as an operating general aviation airport, the runway and main taxiways are kept in very nice condition thanks to the FAA. The Tulare County Sheriff's Department also uses one of the main hangars for its vehicle storage, and there's a Tulare County prison adjacent to the airport. In fact, when you're driving in, the prison is on the right and the airport's on the left. Consequently, when you're on the airport, you may be the only one out on the tarmac, but you do feel a big police presence. That's been somewhat comforting to know during the many times I've been at Sequoia flying my paramotor alone. Sequoia may be in decline, but there is still a special nostalgic flair to this place. Maybe it's just the feeling you have when you're there. One thing you'll notice right off the bat is the C-130 parked on the south side. I don't know who owns it or what they plan to do with it, but it's an interesting thing to look at, and one gets the sense that in its glory days it did something pretty important. It may have a little air left in its tires, but 3 of its 4 engines are missing.
Clear prop.
After spending enough time roaming around on foot at Sequoia, I decided it was time to take things into the air. A thorough engine run-up is always good to help clear out the carburetor and ensure that your engine's going to perform when it's most needed, in the initial few seconds of climb. I do a thorough inspection of the wing as well, and I make sure there's no knots, rips, or tears, among other things. One last walk around of the motor, and I feel pretty confident in my equipment.
One of the things that sets paramotoring apart from conventional aircraft, besides the obvious, of course, is that our takeoffs and landings have to be into the wind for the most part. Landing, you can get away with a crosswind much more than you can a takeoff. And here at Sequoia Field, we've got all this clear area out here that borders the runway, and for good reason. It's runway 13 and 31. It basically goes from the northwest to the southeast. But right now, the wind happens to be coming from this way. And being that I'm operating a paramotor, that's the direction I have to take off. Now, I know it can be done safely. I've done it myself. I've seen much more experienced people than me do it. You just have to be very prudent and get on the controls right away and start a turn for obvious reasons.
After takeoff, you get the usual sense of the big picture, only attainable from the air. So the fact is, Sequoia really gives the PPG pilot a feeling that they have an entire airport to themselves. But it's a feeling only outdone by the magnitude of the endless paramotor roaming that can be done surrounding it. Little-used railroad tracks that divide the landscape provide a pathway for the curious paramotor pilot with a full tank of fuel. Here I'd come upon a family who'd converted their field into a racetrack for a demolition derby. Further down the railroad tracks, I come across some palm trees, which are always inviting to me for a treetop palm frond kick or two. Kicking the top of a palm tree to me is a rebuke to the saying that humans can't fly like birds. Kicking weeds also gives me a similar feeling, but it's just not the same. After climbing to 1,000 feet to get my bearings, I spot a controlled burn. I wanted to feel the warmer air and smell the wood smoke, so I maneuvered in just above the fumes. As I wrapped my way around the back of the property, the owner came out to wave. It's a sight that's so common from people out here. They see me up in this weird flying contraption and suddenly become so friendly. It's awesome. As the sun starts getting low in the sky, I deploy my strobe light and start making my way back to Sequoia. These winter hazy days make for all-day flying in smooth, stable air. But that benefit does come at the cost of reduced visibilities, so having a GPS out here is pretty valuable. Once back, I decide to say goodbye to the sun properly and climb high again, but not before cutting my motor off and having the peace and quiet that only free flight can bring. Two minutes later or so, I'm flaring up to my truck and stepping back onto the planet. With its rich history and small-scale aircraft boneyard, Sequoia is an especially inviting place to roam for the paramotor pilot who has some extra time, or the generally curious with an appreciation of the past. Its inviting farmlands are a playground for the paramotor pilot who wants to not only see the Earth in a special way, but also smell and taste it too. This is especially true during the spring, when the countless citrus and almond trees come into bloom.